Okay, come on, bring it in. Bring it in. Listen up. Listen up. Today we have got an amazing guest, and I'm really excited to have him in our locker room today. I'm Coach Mickey, and you're on Fourth and One Mindset. And if this is your first time coming into our locker room, come on in, make yourself comfortable, and you're going to learn a lot. We're going to bring some information that not only helps you as an athlete, but as a parent, if you're a business owner, or just someone who's looking to excel more in their life than where they are right now. For those of you that are here on a regular basis, thank you so much. And also, I want to thank many of you who've already reached out to me. And if you have not yet, my book is now available, Fourth and One Mindset, on Amazon. I'm really excited about this. I'm getting great reviews, and other people are reaching out to me to do some other reviews for them. So, with that being said, I'm excited because I have got with me today Brian McFarland. He is a passionate soccer player. He's been playing for the past 11 years. He's a goalkeeper. He plays on several leagues in New York City. He's had a chance to actually play in a semi-professional match, and he's going to share that story with us. He also works with business of life, and he works with kids, and you guys know how dear that is to me, working with kids and sharing our knowledge, not only as coaches, but also for individuals that can make their life a little bit better. So welcome, Brian. How are you?
I am so well. If I were any better, I'd be twins.
This is good. Well, I read your bio, and the reason I wanted to invite you to our locker room is I wanted to hear your story about soccer. I mean, any sport that we play has got to take some kind of drive and passion, but also to get to a semi-professional game. I mean, that takes a lot to get to where you are. I mean, to where you were, to getting to that point.
Yeah, it certainly does. And certainly, thank you for having me on the show. Thank you for all you do. I've listened to so many episodes and learned a lot myself. So it's really a great platform that you're building and so helpful. Yeah, so my soccer journey in brief, I grew up on Long Island in New York, a big soccer community, and tried out for a team, or, you play in elementary school when I was 6 or 7. And I was kind of a heavy kid, so I was slow, and I did not have a great coach. So I got kind of bullied off the team, if you will. Fast forward to later in my life when I had kids, and soccer is huge in New York City. So I always like and have found coaching, training, whether it be in sales and business, in any aspect, is something that I really enjoy doing, is watch people, especially young people, be the best that they could be, and figuring out ways to want to motivate them. Certainly as a parent, always trying to do that for my kids. So I coached my son's team, I coached my daughter's team, and started to learn about soccer. I didn't know that much, to be honest, and started kicking a ball around myself. So that was a re-beginning, and this was in my mid 40s or so, that I re-engaged with soccer. Then my own personal journey began after I actually wound up starting to get divorced. And anyone who's been divorced knows, all of a sudden all your weekends were full, and now half of your weekends are open. And people would be surprised at New York City, the amount of soccer fields that are available. So I started walking around, and aimlessly, as sometimes people do after a tough divorce, and found that there's all these people playing soccer. So I went on a field, asked how I could play. It was through a meetup group app that they have in some cities. So I showed up the next week as this guy who's never really played soccer, and it was 7v7, and went on the pitch. And as a field player, I was probably an accident waiting to happen. But every 7 minutes in these games, they rotate to be goaltender, because no one wants to play goaltender. Um, and I found that even though I was not very good at it, I enjoyed it. And it was a position that I could see myself growing into. So when I asked on the next rotation if I could stay as a goalie, they said, "You want to do this?" Because nobody wants to be hit, right? In football, people, I guess, like to play, defense sometimes more than they do offense, so they can hit people. I actually like to be on the receiving end of that for some odd reason. So everyone said yes, and even though I wasn't very good, just the fact that I would do that, endeared me to so many people. So that began a journey that now is about 14 years in. And honestly, Coach Mickey, I just grew so drawn to the sport and to the craft. And I stayed with coaching my son's team, but I started training myself really, really, really hard on weekends and playing every ounce of time that I possibly could. I started training in soccer. No, none of the younger leagues have coaches for the goalkeepers. They only really coach the field players. So I started to take the things that I was learning as a soccer goalie, and I started unofficially coaching all the goaltenders in my son's league and started to find some success there. So I had good coaches teaching me so that I was passing that on, just like we should do as responsible adults. And I really found a niche both as a coach for young goaltenders and then being coached. And after playing for about 5 or 6 years on my own, upwards of 10 plus hours a week, a coach saw me play and walked up to me one day and said, listen, I'm a coach of the Antiguan team in the Caribbean League, and our goaltender got hurt last week and we don't have a backup. So would you be interested in subbing this week? I said, first off, I'm not Antiguan. He said, well, we were allowed two non-Antiguan players every week, and I know that you could do it. So I doubled down on my training that week, and I was actually fortunate enough. Coaching is everything, or having a great coach. So I had been training with a gentleman, Buna, who had been a professional goalkeeper in MLS, Major League Soccer. And he had been one of the outstanding goalies for the New York Red Bulls and for the Colorado, I forget the name of that team. And he was training me. So he got me prepared. And I went out to Brooklyn, New York, and met up with the team, which was a bunch of 20 to 25-year-olds who have more than double their age. And I played an entire game and held my own. And we lost while we lost 2-1. I'm looking at a picture of myself with the team, and it's just like which of one of these is not like the other. And I was the different one. So
I love
um,
it. And you put yourself out there to do something that, like you said, you're out there with younger guys, but you're doing something that you love. What do you think was the turning point? Like you said, when you got out there and you decided you wanted to be the goaltender. I mean, what was it that all of a sudden drew you to that position? And then you took the initiative to make it the best one. It wasn't like you stopped. And that's something that I find as a coach that you can't teach kids. You can teach them all the X's and O's, all the plays, all the positions, but what you can't teach them is drive and passion.
you cannot teach them that. We both know you can push them a little, but and I know you see kids. I mean, I could say within 10 minutes, you can see who really wants it. And I've always really wanted it. And that goaltending position, thank you for asking the question. I consider myself extremely unique and I like to be different and go against the grain. So, when you're playing 11v11, there's only one goalkeeper. So you have to be of a different mindset. Um, and be willing to, in soccer, uh, kind of one of the sayings we have is the goalkeeper actually, that's the saying is we never win the games. We can only lose the games, right? We can't score goals. We can only concede goals. So you have to have the mental toughness to say, to enter the game that way and say, I'm generally not going to be the hero. Although if you really play well, you can be the hero, of the game. But I'm not going to be Lionel Messi, right, scoring the touchdowns or scoring the goals. So it's a mindset shift of wanting to embrace sort of what's like a solo. You're part of a team, but it is really lonely back there. Um, because George Vesey, the famous, he's now retired New York Times sports writer, he said playing goaltender, and he's covered like 5 World Cups. He's like, it's like flying an airplane where it's you basically spend 85% of the flight on autopilot, and then 15% of it, you're there when everything is chaotic and it's just sheer chaos, and then it calms down. So the other part of that is you also have to have, this is going to sound weird, but you also have to be willing to be hit, as I said a little bit earlier, as opposed to hitting. So you're on the receiving end of really hard shots coming in. You're on the receiving end of players coming in at warp speed and a lot of bodies flying around. So you have to be both strong enough physically and mentally to be able to take that. I broke right now I'm playing with pretty much a broken left hand, that I just happened to dive, and save a play. But that happens in the process. I think in the last 12 years of playing soccer, I've had upwards of, this is near and dear to your heart in football, is probably about 8 concussions, um, broken fingers, dislocated shoulders, a torn MCL. So soccer, I think right up there with football and skiing, is the most lower body injuries that are out there. So, the short answer to your question is you have to have a tough mental mindset, but I'd also say you have to have kind of a screw loose to want to play that position.
Well, I also think too that you know what you're getting into when you're in that position. So you've chose to do it, and then having the information to go forward with it and know what you're up against. Like you said, it takes a strong person, not only physically but also mentally. And I think that's like with every position. Well, goal. I would say goalie's what you're doing. And back to what you were saying that you don't necessarily win the game, but you can lose the game. My kickers, I've sent in my kickers multiple times, and they have to be mentally strong and ready to go because they're either going to win the game for us or they're going to lose the game. The game could go any way, and it can come down to one guy kicking that ball through the uprights, and that's it. But so having that mental capacity to be able to pull that off and deal with it and understand that if it doesn't go the way is to embrace that and go, okay, yeah, that was on me, but you learn from it and you move on. And also knowing what your job is and being able to bring that not only for yourself, but it's going to help the whole team as a whole. And I think that's what happens. I think a lot of people don't understand that. Everybody is like, well, what's in it for me? And while there's no I in team, and you've heard that before, together, everyone achieves more, there is an I in win. And what I mean by that is you are responsible that for if you're going to bring a win to your team, you've got to step up as an individual in every position that you're in and make that the best you can possibly bring. You have to bring it every single time because it's not just for yourself, but it's for everybody else that's depending on you because you are playing together as a unit. And the position that you have is very important, and it's sort of like the linemen and the center. They never get the glory, but nothing happens without them, and nothing's going to happen without a goaltender because if you're not there, well, nothing, it's that's crazy. It's not going to, the whole game's going to change, the whole dynamic. How much of your coaching and the experience that you have do you bring over into your business of life with your kids?
I mean, all of it. I feel like it's all related because you're able to uh, connect the dots when you're communicating, especially with, younger people, about trying to bring something symbolic that they can understand better than the X's and O's of, let's say, education or something like that, right? If was trying to inspire my son, who's an incredible intellectual and super smart, and he's an amazing soccer player, we often reference back the importance of him really focusing on his homework, right? And not multitasking with devices and distractions to the myopic focus that he needs to have. You know, he plays center back, you know, on a great team for his high school. Um, so it's that mindset of saying, hey, just like on the pitch, right, which is where you're having fun, you know, but he works really hard. You know, he wants to go to Duke, right? To get into Duke, one of the hardest schools in the country, you're going to have the grades. You're probably not going to make it on a soccer scholarship as good as he is, but you're going to need the grades. So you're going to need that myopic focus. So it's figuring out, I think, for all of us as great coaches, is what is the mindset we're trying to bring to the child or to the youth or to our children specifically? What's the relatable situation that we can bring to them that's going to motivate them to do that? And I think, you know, you're such a great coach. You have so many great coaches on. I think if we spend the extra bit of time to look at that player as an individual and say, what can I find that's in them that they can't find in themselves right now? That's going to really, really motivate them. And then key in on that. And then it makes it so understandable for them that, you know, I think you can't force anyone to do anything. You have to kind of create the situation where they want to do it, something you know very well. And once you can create a situation where they want to do something, you know, more than half of your job is done. Now you're just guiding them because that inner drive, you know, is there. In sales, I've coached and hired and been an individual contributor and built sales teams and organizations. And one thing my great coaches would always say that I was reporting to is when we would qualify a candidate, um, we'd say, look, if we make it like a dog analogy, right? I always want a pit bull that I kind of have to pull the leash back on because while that's takes some extra work for me versus, I don't know, another breed of dog who's just much more passive and kind of needs to be, I would never hurt a dog, but like metaphorically, like kick the dog to make it go, right? That the dog that you need to push is not one I necessarily want to expend the energy to do that. I'd rather deal with the challenging dog that motivates itself to, in essence, outperform, you know, all the other dogs. So I'm not even a dog person, but I always make that analogy.
Well, I also think that there's some validity to that because I've noticed that some of the kids that I've worked with, if they come from a situation or a background or an environment that they need to either leave or change, their why is a lot stronger than somebody who is just like, yeah, I'm just kind of here going through the motions. And you're right. I can see it within the first 5 minutes. I can tell who are the ones that really want it. And whatever the reason is, you can see the passion, the drive. They're the ones that are like the sponges. They're like, teach me more. I want to know more. I want to be the best. And I can even see that just recently. I'm coaching now. We just got done with spring ball. And I'm working with a group of guys from the D line, and they'll walk off. Ah, we're done. We're good. You know, I've got this. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, don't, you've got this. Okay. At your level. But then I've got a group of like four of them that are like, coach, can we stay after? You know, can you teach us more? Can you help me? I wasn't sure about this. And those are the kids. Those are the ones that I want to work with. And they're also the ones that excel. The ones that think they know everything and think they got it, or they don't have a real reason why they want to be there. They just go through the motions and they don't excel. The ones that do want the information, they'll excel and exceed these other guys. And then they're sitting there wondering why, hey, why didn't I get an offer? Why didn't I get a chance to play? Because like you said, you have to have it within you to really want it. And I don't care what sport it's in. Actually, I don't care what you're doing. It could be business too. It could be everything you do. If you really want something, you will find a way to make it happen. You know, I one of the favorite uh, quotes I have here, and I don't even know where I got it from. I just put it on a post-it note on my my monitor. Is failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. You know, that's what you got to do. You got to keep coming back, no matter what happens. You know, it's not always going to be easy. And so, with your business of life, tell me what you do. Tell me, like, how do you work with the kids, and what does it bring to them? You know, how does it help them?
Oh, yeah, sure. And I love that quote, by the way. I'll have to install that into my repertoire. So my life partner, she runs a non-for-profit organization in New York City that represents, based up in Harlem, that in the STEM area, which is so important to our country, to all of our lives, right? Is it uh, they take the extra step to help students who are very motivated, but they generally come from underrepresented financial areas. So they do not have the opportunity to go to the better public schools, or they certainly don't have the opportunity to go to private schools, right? So they are, you talked about it, with some of the kids that you talked about, right? They are already at a disadvantage simply because they don't have the level of coaching, i.e., teachers, or opportunities. Thus, right, their parents or single parents, right, don't have the networking into maybe the higher paying jobs or something like that. So what her organization does is it gets them internships with Columbia University and Cornell and all these really great colleges and companies in the tri-state area. And it's a pretty rigorous screening process for the kids to get into the program because her organization needs to make sure these kids really want it, right? So these are like overachieving kids who've brought themselves out of the situation that they're in, exactly like you're talking about. So I started to meet some of these kids since I've been with her, and I always felt like in sales, I'm not really doing much, if at all, to give back outside of my organization, let's say. So once I met her and I saw what she was doing for young people, both elementary school and high school, I said, wow, what an opportunity here. I could share my wisdom and knowledge with young people at an early stage in their life and just help them. And one of the things I had always thought was, even when I graduated college many years ago, I always thought a college should have a course called The Business of Life, right? Before the internet, no one taught us how to make a resume. No one taught me how to write a cover letter. I was looking through want ads in newspapers, to kind of get a job. So, you graduate and you have all these classes behind you, but you don't really have any real life skill. So I said, I'm not a graduate teacher or anything like that, but here's an opportunity to give back and impart wisdom on people. And I always say in my own podcast, if what I'm saying can even help one person, then it's all worth it. So I started a program that I just called The Business of Life. And that became the slogan of my podcast, Owning the Goal, because success in sales is success in life, right? So you, I, every person on this planet is a salesperson, right? Whether you're dealing with a situation with your life partner, with your child, with your parents, with the cashier at a store, there's a selling situation going on there where you're trying to make a connection with someone, and put your best foot forward. So the course is just called The Business of Life. So I open it up and I've given all the kids something, whether it's a pack of gum, a thing of mints, and whatever. And right before the class starts, I walk around and introduce myself and just hand them something. And then I get up to the front of the room and I started like this. And I said, oh, okay, so who's now every one of these kids, by the way, is there for STEM, right? So they're all into science, engineering. And I said, so who in this room is in sales? And you can guess the answer. Not one hand goes up. And I'll say, oh, okay. Actually, I'll ask the question again. Who in this room is in sales? And they're all just looking around. And I was like, okay, well, you're all, um, I never use the word wrong, right? Positive motivation. I said, and then I'll throw out another question and say, when you woke up this morning, um, what was it, that got you to come here today? And someone will finally raise their hand and they say, well, because I want to learn more and I want to be, a better person, or I want to get a better job. And I said, okay, so you're in sales, right? And they kind of look at it, and then all of a sudden they start laughing, and then all their hands go up. And I said, look, if you look at all the situations you get into sort of as a salesperson, then you're going to approach those situations differently, because in a sales situation, the best outcome is when both people walk away from the interaction feeling as if they've both won, right? No one got something over on the other person, right? The coach and the player each walked away with something that was beneficial to them. Um, and it's just, then I take them through, emailing techniques. How do you make people feel, the great Maya Angelou quote I use? I said, like, people, I put that up on the board. That's the second part. And I go, people will always forget what you did for them or what you said to them, but they will never forget the way you make them feel. And they're looking at me and they're like, okay. And I said, so how I walked around at the beginning of this class and I gave you each something, right? How did that make you feel? And you just saw them go like that. And I said, okay, so if there's anything you can learn from me today, it's go make an impact on the way someone else you interacted with today feels, and they'll remember you forever.
I love that. That is a great way to get that point across. Well, since you brought it up, how can people reach you? And if you're watching this on YouTube, remember the links will be down below so you can reach out to Brian. I highly recommend you do. And if you're listening to the podcast, just click on his name because it'll be highlighted and it'll drive you right to his website. But while people are listening, Brian, how can people reach you if they want to reach out to you?
Sure. Thanks, Coach Mickey, and thank you for the time. So it's the website and the podcast is called Owning the Goal. Our tagline is because success in sales is success in life. And the email you can reach me at is Brian, Brian, at owningthegoal.com. We're always interested in having guests. I'd love to have you on as a guest, Coach Mickey. That would be an honor. And I'd be humbled by that because you certainly own the goal for yourself and for your teams. And, we just appreciate helping and sharing. And none of this is about money or finances or anything like that. It's just, I believe we're all somehow put on this earth to make it a better place. So this is the way that I like to give back for all the gifts that I've been given.
I love it. Thank you. And I would love to be a guest on your podcast. And you know what? We ran out of time. So what I'd like to do is give you the last 2 minutes to wrap up and share anything we didn't get a chance to cover or something you'd like to bring to our locker room.
Oh, sure, sure. Well, it's top of mind, just one thing, and it's what I always ask my guests at the end, what's one thing you want to leave people with? And it's just because I put this, it's top of mind because I'm a musician as well. So I put up my latest episode I recorded yesterday, and it's just called Slow Down to Speed Up. And I know it applies to every aspect of life. So what I do is, as a professional drummer and a bass player, I just take the listeners through playing a bass line that I built for a song, and it's at the speed of the song. But then I dial it back and say, it didn't come out this way. This took months of practice and slowing it down to speed up, because I feel like I know for myself, I can only speak for myself. If I tried to be a professional goaltender in that league just right out of the gate, of course, nobody would want me there. But it took 10 years of training and having smart people teach me how to do things slowly and then gradually build up that speed. So I leave people with, look, we can all get better at everything. Find a great coach. If you can't get a great coach, go on YouTube, watch your videos, listen to your videos, listen to a podcast, and listen to people are good at it, and then follow along the directions that perhaps they used, modify them for yourself. And if you put the time and the work in and the passion, you can achieve anything that you want.
I love it. Thank you. I'm going to end on that note. That was perfect. Thank you so much for being with us, Coach Brian. I appreciate you. I appreciate everything that you're doing, what you're doing for these kids, what you're doing in your life. Thank you so much for being my guest today.
Oh, please. Thank you very, very much. And I'll reach out to you after this to set up you to be on our show. We'd love to have that.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, you guys. Hope you got something out of that. Please take what you need from this and apply it to your own life. We're always all learning and we're here to support each other and help each other. That's why we do it. We surround ourselves with people that can help us, just like Coach Brian did, just like I do. We're always learning and evolving, and that's what we do. That's how we get better in everything that we do in every element of our life, not just in sports, but also who we are as individuals. And it could be even your business, your family, or whatever needs improving. So until then, bring it in. I want you guys to remember, get out there, start strong, finish strong, and dominate everything in between. I'm Coach Mickey. Let's go.